The first African Defense Ministers Conference focused on regional peace and security issues kicked at the Adwa Memorial Museum in Addis Ababa. The conference, running for the next 3 days, takes place under the theme Africa United in Peace, Strong in Security. The first African Defense Ministers Conference takes place at the Adwa Victory Memorial Museum, Addis Ababa, under the theme Africa United in Peace, Strong in Security. Deputy Prime Minister Thomas Gantarona, Defense Minister Aisha Mohammed, former Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn and senior government officials attended the event, in addition to African defense ministers, representatives of regional organizations, senior military officers, military attaches based in Addis Ababa, and researchers engaged in military affairs. The conference discussed the importance of strengthening existing partnerships to combat terrorism, address global and regional security threats, and outline directions for future cooperation. Deputy Prime Minister Thomas Gantarona, Defense Minister Aisha Mohammed, former Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn, and senior government officials attended the event, in addition to African defense ministers, representatives of regional organizations, senior military officers, military attaches based in Addis Ababa, and researchers engaged in military affairs. Opening the conference, Deputy Prime Minister Thomas Gantarona mentioned that Africa is currently facing security challenges.
We come together today at a pivotal moment for Africa. Our continent faces profound security challenges. Intrastate conflicts, cross-border tensions, and the spread of terrorism have sparked no region. Nations that were once seen as stable are now grappling with new vulnerabilities. Extremist groups are taking root, not just in governed spaces, but in areas once considered secure. Yet, even as we confront these difficult realities, let me say this: we are united in purpose. We are not here to simply talk about the problems we face. We are here to find solutions. This moment calls for us to reaffirm a principle that has guided us for decades: African solutions to African problems. That idea is not just a slogan, it is an imperative. We cannot look to others to solve our challenges. All too often, foreign interventions under the guise of humanitarian aid or human rights advocacy have complicated our efforts to achieve peace. It is up to us, here on this continent, to take responsibility for our security and for our future. The African Union continues to be a beacon for us in this endeavor. The African Union's steadfast commitment to peace, security, and democratic governance had laid the groundwork for the Africa we dream of: a peaceful, prosperous, and united continent. Initiatives like African Standby Force, the vision of silencing the guns, and Agenda 2063 are vital components of this journey.
Moreover, Thomas added that Africa doesn't exist in isolation. Global powers have a vested interest in Africa's affairs, and their influence is felt in the continent's economies, politics, and in security.
As Africans, we understand that our strength lies in our unity. We know the power of working together. When we share our knowledge, pool our resources, and stand in solidarity, there is no challenge too great for us to overcome. This conference stands as a testament to that belief. Our future depends on the decisions we make today. The security of our nations cannot be left to chance. It must be built by our hands, using our own resources, and forged through our shared commitment to one another. As we deliberate, let's remember that the threats we face do not respect borders. From the Sahel to Horn of Africa, instability and insecurity are spreading. This is why our response must be regional. It must be continental. No single nation can confront this challenge alone. This is why cooperation matters. When African nations share intelligence, train our forces together, and support each other in peacekeeping efforts, we strengthen not only our own security, but the security of the future continent. We make our people safer. But we must also be mindful of the broader context in which we operate. Africa does not exist in isolation. Global powers have a vested interest in our affairs, and their influence is felt in our economies, our politics, and yes, in our security. We must engage with the world of our own terms, ensuring the Africa's interests and represented and respected on the global stage.
Temesgen urged all to contribute efforts for the shared vision of Africa in realizing peaceful and prosperous continent.
Our task is to strike the right balance, leveraging the support we receive while building the strengths we need to stand on our own. That is how we preserve our sovereignty, our dignity, and our independence. I have no doubt that this conference will produce concrete, actionable outcomes. We will leave here with stronger partnerships, enhanced military capabilities, and a renewed determination to create a future where peace is not just an aspiration, but a reality across Africa. I urge all of you to engage fully, contribute your expertise, and commit to our shared vision, a peaceful, secure, and thriving Africa. Together, we will build the African we want.
Ethiopia's Minister of Defense Engineer Aisha Mohammed on her part said that Ethiopia is honored to host the forum where the guardians of African security come together to deepen the bonds and cooperation within the continent. The minister added that this is a testament to the unwavering commitment to peace, security, and shared vision of a stable Africa where people can thrive.
We are gathered here today for a significant occasion, the African Defense Ministers' Peace and Security Conference, an assembly where the continent's most distinguished leaders in defense come together, not only to address our shared challenges, but to chart the course for a more secure and prosperous Africa. The presence of such esteemed leaders and dignitaries from across Africa signals not only the importance of this gathering, but also our collective resolve to safeguard the future of our continent. This is a testament to our unwavering commitment to peace, security, and the shared vision of the stable Africa where our people can thrive. Ethiopia is honored to host this important forum where the guardians of Africa's security come together to deepen our bonds of cooperation, to forge new paths of collaboration, and to ensure the future to ensure that the future of our continent is brighter than ever before. This conference is not just a gathering, it is a demonstration of our collective will to stand firm in the face of adversity, to overcome the threats that seek to destabilize us, and to embrace the opportunities that lie ahead. As we convene today, we are acutely aware of the many security challenges that confront our continent. From the threat of terrorism and insurgencies to the rise of organized crime and human trafficking, from the growing threat of cyber attacks to the enduring impact of political instability and economic hardship, our security environment has become more complex than ever before. But in this complexity lies our opportunity to strengthen our cooperation, to share knowledge, and to build the resilience of our nations.
The minister added that the cooperation between African defense forces are vital to shaping the future of the continent's defense strategy.
The discussions on contemporary security challenges, the current world order and its impact, and the cooperation between African defense forces are vital to the shaping of the future of Africa's defense strategy. These are not just academic exercises. They are discussions that will shape the policies and actions that we as leaders make to secure the peace and prosperity of our nations. The strength of Africa lies in its unity. Our collective strength lies in our ability to harmonize our efforts, exchange knowledge, and unite as one. It is through this shared resolve that our continent will rise, resilient and stronger in the face of adversity. I have no doubt that together we will rise to the challenge and develop actionable, sustainable solutions to safeguard the peace, security, and prosperity of Africa.
Head of Political Affairs and Counter-Terrorism Focal Point for the African Union, Bobatunde Payomi Taiwan, commended the commitment of Ethiopia for its positive contribution to peace and security in Africa and globally. He emphasized the urgent need for collaborative efforts among African nations to tackle escalating insecurities.
The African Union advocates for a threat-led approach to ensure that African armed forces remain adaptable and maintain an agile mindset. This will involve a greater focus on technology, particularly the development of artificial intelligence defense ecosystem, something we proudly see emerging as a priority for Ethiopia. We also believe that this approach should be infused with a spirit of international cooperation and forging new alliances within and beyond Africa. At this juncture, I want to express the African Union's pride in our armed forces. You have demonstrated the capacity to fight and win. You have also shown a willingness to be Africa's first responder in many conflict situations across the continent, often with limited resources. As we have witnessed also, your professionalism and selflessness in theaters. In ATMIS, we continue to observe the Somali National Armed Forces lead efforts to degrade Al-Shabaab, while also recognizing the vital role NARC plays in combating terrorism in North Africa. Similarly, the armed forces in SAM DRC, and MNJTF have all made significant contributions in creating conditions for civilian life to strive. To achieve peace and security envisioned in the African Union's Agenda 2063, we must work towards permanently silencing the guns across our continent. Recognizing our shared identity, our shared values, and drawing on our collective experiences is crucial for turning commitments into action. In this context, it remains important for us all to collectively revisit a key component of the African peace and security architecture.
During the conference, former Ethiopian Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn presented a discussion paper on the existing world order and its impact on Africa. In his presentation, Hailemariam emphasized the need for an African renaissance, stressing that Africa should get its rightful position and stage in the global system.
What we are lacking in Africa is we do not have a proper strategic dialogue on issues that pertains African continent. So thank you for that, and we need to do that. I want to first touch on Africa and the previous world order, and then go into the globalization that has taken place through economic integration in the globe, and then where is Africa in a polar world we see now, and those risks that are associated with this changing international order. And we have to look into those risks proper so that we can understand and resolve those things in a proper way. And also, when it is changing, and everybody has been talking about that there is a tectonic shift that is taking place globally. But where do we see Africa in this shift of order? Are we going to continue with victimized status we are having earlier on in this shift as well? And I think this is a big question that has to be answered. So we will see the roles of that Africa can play in the global world order, and a reform call for you leaders in the security and defense sector. So now, the first is the previous world orders were not favorable for Africa. And we see that the world order starting from the 19th century, which has have never been beneficiary to Africa. I think this is a big issue that we have to look into. Again, we are, becoming a battleground during those era that Africa was not beneficiary at all. It's not from the victim mindset that I'm talking now. It's because it's history we have to understand and chart our way in the future. So, in general, the post-World War order has never reflected Africa's quest, and Africa was set aside by those global fightings. And we need to focus now. Now that has been not the case, and what are you going to do in the future is a big question that has to be addressed. So in the 1970s, I think Africa was a victim of, actually this is not the subsidiary action program, it is the structural adjustment program, which you all know that Africa was forced to accept a kind of economic system and a structural adjustment into their economies, which devastated most of the African countries. So I think this kind of order has not been beneficial to us, and we have to look into, as a historic background, what to do next. And we shouldn't be, again, played as a victim in our new order as well. With this, we will see the impact of globalization. And, it's characterized by intensification of cross-border trade and increased financial and foreign direct investment. That has happened in the globalized world. But did Africa have a stake in this globalization? It's a big issue as well. So I think there is, increased dependence on foreign aid, debt, and remittances, because structurally our economies has not been beneficial, and we haven't been changing our economic structure very well. So when we compare ourselves as a continent with the rest of emerging powers globally, like China, India, or other Asian countries emerging, they have used that opportunity to change the structure of their economies and become a productive countries. And their capacity to produce has increased. But we remain to be dependent on extractives and non-structurally changing sectors. So I think this is one of the impacts of globalization, which we have seen as a negative consequences in many ways that you can see. Of course, it has given us access which we haven't put our house in order, so we didn't use it properly. So even though it's not an issue for the defense and security sector, understanding of this is very essential to support the political part of your governance system to address these issues proper.
Halamaram highlighted the necessity of engaging in meaningful discussions about Africa's role in the changing international landscape. Moreover, he pointed out that Africa currently lacks a cohesive platform for addressing issues pertinent to the continent. He elaborated on the historical context, arguing that previous world orders have not favored Africa.
Africa has to come together and understand themselves. We do have a landmark decisions our leaders have made, the African Continental Free Trade Area, so that we can integrate as traders within ourselves, intra-Africa trade. But are we understanding very well that we need to come very quickly together because we don't have time? It's a sense of urgency. Otherwise, what's going to happen? We'll remain fragmented, we'll be victimized, we'll be at the receiving end, and Africa will suffer. And our people ultimately will suffer. So I think these are going on. The economic uncertainty is so huge that we have to understand it carefully, strategically think, and try to resolve the issues. The other one is, the societal issue to the extent of worsening mental health because of, lack of opportunities, extreme inequality, and all sorts of, livelihood problems, including inflationary pressure. And some people at the lower strata are not able even to eat their daily meal. And that has created all problems. And we have to address those things properly. So I think the globalization and the new global order is creating all these problems towards Africa. And when you see technology is playing even major role in the defense sector. But it has huge negative consequences as well. So we are entering into uncharted territory because of accelerated emerging technologies that are happening now, especially the artificial intelligence one. So I think this is a very great concern. We have cyber attacks, data fraud, and it has changed the working patterns. All these are moving in. So the adverse impact of artificial intelligence is all upon us. Are we prepared as Africans to deal with these kind of things? I know some countries are strategically working, my own country, Ethiopia. I would like to thank the leadership in this regard. But the whole Africa, if they don't come together and understand this issue and resolve it, then we'll again continue to be at the receiving end. So I think this is also very important. Nonetheless, this poly crisis, as the moderator was mentioning, is far-reaching. Like every one of us, we see that the climate complications and catastrophes that are happening because of the climate change is upon us. And we have those related risks because of intensified biodiversity loss, pollution, and critical change to Earth's system we are living in is something which is very important. For you as a defense leadership as well, this is very important. So you have to understand the changing dynamics in this regard. So there is a huge risk in this international order, and we have to look into.
Halamaram called for unity among African nations, urging them to advocate for their collective interests with one mind, one voice, and one energy.
Number one, we should be from rule taker to rule maker. This is number one. The how, you have to answer it. We have always been, starting from the previous global orders until today, we were rule takers rather than rule makers. So how can we be rule makers or take part in the negotiations where the rules are made? I think this is the best time for Africa to take part and play its rightful role. And this is number one. Number two, we have a huge population in the by 2050, our population will double, and we are becoming the largest market, emerging market with a young people. Huge democratic dividend. This is, for aging population in other world, is a big opportunity. And then they will be seeking us to be partnering. But if we remain balkanized, if we remain to be fragmented, then we cannot harness this potential. So there comes the big question, what we should do. So I think the second one, leverage, we have to do is this issue. The third is trade and connectivity. Africa is an epicenter of geographic position for trading with the global community. You know, we have 38 countries access to open water, even though we have some with landlocked countries, but most African countries are open and access to the sea. And we are a gateway between transatlantic and Asia and Latin America as well, and also Northern America. This is very important opportunity. And the third, which I told you earlier also, the natural resources potential we have. We are the future of the globe. But we have to negotiate proper in this regard and get our own place. And finally, we are good at global diplomacy at this moment. And we have to strengthen that global diplomacy. And we have got some results in the global diplomacy, but it still remains very much because our continental institution, the African Union, is not as we envisage it to be a strong institution. And we have to make it strong because that's our institution. Who's going to make African Union to be a strong institution representing Africa? It's we. If we are weak, African Union is weak. If we are not strategic, African Union cannot be strategic. So I think we have an institution which our forefathers made for us, but we are not utilizing it properly. This is one thing which we have to reform within ourselves.